because Poch is now being tipped to be fired. KJ put this comment in earlier, but we'll put it up on the screen that sources say they believe Mauricio Pochettino is a dead man walking, and despite some wanting him to stay, the pressure is reaching boiling point. Chelsea are aware of Ruben Amorim is available for conversation. So it does appear that, as I have said on the terrace for many weeks and months, that forget what the Chelsea media are telling you because they're being briefed by the club. Poch is certainly under pressure. They weren't just beat last night. It was a record-breaking defeat to Arsenal. They looked awful. Most of their star players they've purchased have not improved. In fact, they've gone backwards under Poch. His record's awful. Do you guys see, Dan, I'll go to Dan first on this. Do you feel like this is true? Do you feel like he's got to be a dead man walking going into the summer after this season?
It is funny how much like one game changes, you know, from like you said earlier, from backing him and sticking by him to that. But yeah, the fans have been on his back for a long time. Fans have been calling for him to go out, and I've sort of stuck up for him by how much of a mess that squad is. But you can't go to a London rival and be getting slapped 5-0 and thinking you're just gonna keep your job. You know what I mean? So the pressures on him is justifiable. I think with how much they've spent, patience is going to be wearing thin. And if they do think they can get an exciting up and coming manager, and don't forget Poch has got the stench of Spurs on him as well. I don't think that does him any favors. I think the pressure is on, and I think maybe they're going to wait to see if he can get Chelsea into Europe, which is going to be very interesting because for them, you look at it, mate, that's more money, but it is more scrutiny on FFP and all of that sort of stuff. So that might be more trouble than it's worth them getting into Europe. But maybe they're going to see how he does in the league in these last few games and then judge at the end of the season. But yeah, massive pressure. And yeah, after last night, rightly so, because them players ain't good enough. You're missing Cole Palmer. It's a mess. But still, you've got to be able to get a performance out there where you ain't going to get slapped 5-0. And I just think maybe...
If it was me, and again, my club, and I consider myself a big club, and I lose to my rivals 5, and if I'm not challenging for the league at that time, I would want the manager out. The only way I would want the manager to stay if I get beat by AC Milan and Juventus 5, if I'm like going for the title or going for the Champions League. Chelsea aren't going for anything, right? And it's not on him, but sometimes context has to be out of the way. Like Man United, last season, you were going for Champions League places, right? That's why after the 7-0, maybe you kept him. But if my club is beat 7-0...
And he just won a trophy like a couple of weeks
before. Yeah. But Poch isn't winning a trophy this season.
Yeah.
And he isn't going to challenge for top 4. And you just lost to your London rivals 5-0. And yes, the players are overrated. We're not going to sit here and repeat everything. But if it was me, I would want the guy to be sacked in the tunnel and get an interim manager. And I'm just giving you, because I consider myself supporting a big club, right? If you want to call yourself a big club, Chelsea, the manager has to be sacked in the tunnel when you lose 5-0. Like we said about Ten Hag losing to Bournemouth at home 3-0. Maybe you guys in the Premier League have it different. But for me, 5-0 to your London rivals, when you aren't going for anything during the season, forget anything out of the way. The players are overrated. The manager in the tunnel. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Habibi. Goodbye. Salam. We'll see you, inshallah, later.
Do you know what? I think that really, for me, it is sackable. But I think you judge a manager by how you're able to get those players to bounce back. Because, look, we've all been on the end of these slappers. Everyone's pointing out, yes, we lost 6-0 to Arsenal. 5-2 to Palace. I was calling for Moyes to go at that point. I was saying, yeah, that is a sackable offense. But it's about how you bounce back. So if you can turn around and get your team, lift your team up and get them to slap someone else next week, then you can sit there and go, do you know what? That was just a blip. You've shown that, yeah, you have the potentials to pick up these players when they're on the floor. Do you know what I mean?
I'm sorry, I'm not getting this.
You don't think any team,
bro? If Inter is beat to AC Milan 5, and I'm not going for the title, and I'm sitting 7th or 8th or 9th in the league, my manager, no matter what the circumstances are, I'm telling you, the ultras of Inter were right
The league
to get the
position is
manager
good
sacked.
context. Yeah.
The
Yeah,
league position.
I get what Mo's saying. I think there's so many things at play here with Chelsea, and everybody always seems to focus on one of the issues. So there are a lot of players that are not good enough in this Chelsea squad. I completely agree, and we'll get onto that. But at the same time, they have a lot of players that are better than many of the teams that are below them, but their structure still, it's very similar to Man United. The structure of the team isn't right. They work hard to a certain degree for Poch, but I feel like the team is a reflection of him. They've got no bottle. And as Gary Neville coined the phrase, blue £1 billion bottle jobs or whatever it was. And you saw that, you've seen that in a number of different ways this season. In games they should win, but they failed to take chances or capitalize. Leads they've had that have been thrown away. Or there's been a few games like last night this season where they should have got pumped, but maybe the finishing of the opponents has kind of got them away from it. I think Man United, when we played them at home, we should have scored so many more goals than we did. Spurs were on course to destroy them until they stupidly got 2 players sent off as an example. And yes, they've had a couple of good games against City this year where 3 good games really, but they haven't actually even managed to win any of those games, right? And I just look at it and think, so even when they've played well, they've come out second best too often. And I think that you have to look at the manager. He's done nothing to disprove my theory about him, Poch, this entire time at Chelsea. He's actually made it worse. I thought he'd get them playing really good football, but just not get them over the line. But in fact, he hasn't even got the football to look particularly good. He's bottling sort of gateway moments in the process of trying to get back up to the top. They have to look to move him on. However, what I would also say to Chelsea fans in the next breath is that this isn't a simple solution of sack the manager, bring in an Alma in, and you're going to improve. There's a lot of players in your team who have a long way to go to prove their Premier League standard. And when I say Premier League standards, I'm talking about the Premier League, La Liga. I'm talking about the best leagues in the world, which whether you think we're the best or one of the best, it's not debatable. We absolutely are. But I was going back through last night's team as an example, and even some of the players that are out and missing. And I think to myself, Petrovic in goal, not good enough. Recently, he did well when he first came in, but recent weeks, lots of mistakes. He ain't the guy. Sanchez, who's also came in, isn't the guy. Reece James, sorry to say it, Chelsea fans, isn't the guy. Too many injuries. Gusto, I think you should keep him. I think he's excellent. Dazarsi is a disaster. Badiashile, absolutely not. Cucurella, meh. He's had 2 years there. He's had some good moments, but overall not good enough. Ben Chilwell, absolutely nowhere near the standard. I think Caicedo, I think there's a player in there. And I think the right manager could get that out of him. I think, he showed some, I mean, they conceded 5 goals last night, but I like him still. Enzo Fernandez, absolutely not for me. And I'm at a point now where he may prove me wrong in the future, but I watched him again last night. Weak whenever he's being challenged physically. No speed, no real athleticism. Doesn't have a killer pass. As in, he isn't setting up the gilt edge chance. Doesn't score goals. Isn't great in the tackle. Loses so many of his ground duels, especially against good quality opponents.
Top midfielders in the league. Oh my God, he's one of the best midfielders in the league.
He's so bang average at the minute. Conor Gallagher got all the heart. He's got all the gear, but no idea, I would say. He's got all the heart in the world, but he ain't quite good enough on the ball. Mahalo Mudryk, don't make me laugh. I think Madueke's got great skill, but there's zero in product, so they need someone to challenge him. And Nicholas Jackson. Nicholas Jackson, one of the most frustrating players in the Premier League. Decent hold-up play. Excellent skill. Wonderful dribbling. Brilliant speed. But the man couldn't score in a brothel. If he fell into a barrel full of boobs, he'd come out sucking his thumb. 110%.
No wonder he's desperate for a penalty. Do you know what I mean? That's the only way he can try and get his goal stats.
Well, this is the thing. And then you start going down the pecking order. Silva's leaving. Didn't even start yesterday. Sterling's over the hill. Chalobah isn't good enough. The squad building has been atrocious. It really has been. And look, I was someone when Todd Bowley and co came in, I thought they keep spending like Roman, but they create this sort of great footballing philosophy where they don't sometimes I think they sack some managers too soon. Jose first time, Ancelotti as an example, but they if they basically did what a Dortmund do or a Leipzig do, but they supercharged it with Roman style money and brought superstars in as well. I was genuinely petrified of what Chelsea could become. But it's gone I have to hold my hands up. And again, what you say and what you do are very, very different. What you promise to deliver versus what you actually execute are not always the same thing. And Chelsea talked a good talk. And I will say this to Chelsea fans, your owners have got to change many things behind the scenes. Your squad, again, I don't know how you afford to do this, needs a complete overhaul. And you need the manager gone as well. This is not, and you're going down the route that Man United did of, if we get rid of Poch, we're going to be okay. Or if we sell these 2 crap players and get rid of Poch, we'll be fine. It's a bigger problem than that. It really is. And I think last night probably hasn't happened enough this season where they've been battered on the scoreline. And I noticed a difference and a change in Chelsea fans last night where they almost went, oh, God, we really are that bad team. We really are that bad. And I'm not even saying this to dig at Chelsea. I really thought Todd Bowley and co were going to do a good job for Chelsea. I have to hold my hands up. You know, a real man does when you get things wrong. That hasn't gone according to plan 110%. But I'll call it out because I don't like to see, you know, the working person, the working man, the working woman's club treated in this way. They're acting like they don't have any financial issues. They do. They've got to sell all your academy players to buy this summer. If that doesn't work, what's next? What next part of your soul are you going to sell to continue on this project? They're in a lot of trouble, Chelsea, at the moment, and there's so much that's unbelievable.
Alhamdulillah. Do you remember when I sat on the terrace in the beginning of the season? I said, for the good of football, this project has to fail, and they laughed at me. Where are you? Where are you now? Like, listen, you buy a lot of youngsters. You buy a lot of. We told you you need this, you need that. You told us. A lot of Chelsea fans, you guys told us, no, we are ready. This project is gonna work. Where are you now? You need to sell a lot of players. You need to get a lot of players still. You told us we're building a squad. You handed 8-year contracts, right? And you're extending Mudryk contract and you're extending Enzo Fernandez. These guys are gonna get paid until 2030. I don't know if I'll be even here 2030. Who knows how long we're gonna live?
You'll be around. God willing.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? But listen, this project failed, and it is failing now. The fact that a lot of Chelsea fans saying we need to sell that, we need to sell this is not working, is actually a proof that it doesn't work. Football doesn't work like this. You cannot just buy 50,000 players and sell 50,000 players and buy again the season after and hoping that it works and it bangs, and hoping that a youngster will bang and you'll be able to sell him for 100 million. Look at you now. Enzo Fernandez value dropped one of the most in the world, right? Mudryk dropped one of the most in the world, right? Even Caicedo. The values of your players dropped massively. To be honest with you, this project failed. They need to start over. I don't know where they get the money. A lot of Chelsea fans are living in dreamland, thinking that they have a lot of money, as you said, Terry, and because they've been fed that narrative. And I think Chelsea, you might be going into a terrible era as well. A terrible, terrible era.
It's fixable. The thing is, though, it's still very fixable. So if they get rid of, well, money's always going to be needed in this era. If they, again, there are lots of talented players in the squad, and look, I'm sitting here now saying, you know, Mudryk, don't rate him. He could turn out to be really good, right? We all get things right, we all get things wrong. That element for me isn't that important, but they do have a problem. And if this summer they were to go out and buy 4 really talented, experienced players and add them to this squad,
yes, they
would hold on to the talent that they've got and then bring in a manager that can make the structure work. So they bring in a manager that gets them defense. Again, you've got to remember, defensively, they are, and it isn't just the personnel, because there are teams that have much worse defenders than them that pound for pound defend better than they do. They've conceded so many goals. They need to fix that first of all. I really thought the Caicedo Enzo midfield would work, but Anita in the group chat last night just said, I don't think they can play together. And maybe that's what it is. I think there's issues with Enzo. I think Enzo lacks the physicality to be a Premier League box-to-box midfield player. He just doesn't. The way Wright and Odegaard were just that much quicker to the punch last night was big for me. But if they get the right manager in, 3 or 4 good signings in the summer, they can stop the rot year, like in that first year of the new manager. You can stop the rot, solidify, try and get back into some form of Europe, and then keep adding from that point. What I think they've got to stop trying to do is fix it all in one summer. by going, do you know what? We're going to borrow some from this investment firm and get this person to buy some land, and we're going to spend another 600 million in a season, because you're going to create the same problems again. An imbalanced, overpopulated squad where a manager's struggling to know who to pick. You need to almost boil it down and start again. But you've got to add some experience to this team, because the kids in this squad, they cannot handle the pressure they're under, because they're not at a small club. They're a gigantically big club. Roman made you giants. Yeah. The pressure and the media attention is on you, and these kids are struggling. And the stench of last season has carried on over into this one. And I think a big reset is needed this summer for Chelsea.